Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Christal. I have a beautiful special guest today. Her name is Ashleigh Chanel, and I'm going to read a little bit about who she is. And then once we jump into the conversation, Ashleigh, I would love for you to tell the audience a fun fact about you, and then we'll jump into our chat. But Ashleigh is a world traveling gadgets addict. She's an expert digital marketer and the CEO of Make Your Mark digital marketing agency. Ashleigh Chanel helps profit driven business owners transform their businesses into revenue generating and impact creating machines without the extra time and stress. She positions her clients and authorities in their industries with tailored organic and paid marketing and advertising strategies. Welcome, Ashleigh.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited for this chat.
Me too.
Okay, share with us and share with the listeners one fun fact about you, and then we're going to dive in.
Fun fact, I've been to 35 countries. That's fun.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Share with us like some of your top favorites.
So I got my MBA in Italy, and that was one of the
Oh,
reasons. So while I was there, I went to 17, and then after that, I was able to do the rest. Even from, I'm living in America, but my favorites, Italy still hands down. I think Italy is one of the most beautiful countries. You can get everything from the beach to the mountains.
mhm.
Um, and Portugal, such a
Okay.
beautiful place, and Romania. I thought Romania was one of the most beautiful places I'd seen. It's so pretty, and the people are so nice.
Oh my gosh, you're so well traveled. I love that. And to do your MBA in Italy, may I ask real quick, like what made you make that decision? Because I feel like you're originally from the States, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we are so like society just kind of, you know, places us where we just primarily would think locally, meaning like within the States, right? So what made you, decide to go abroad? I love that.
I wish I could remember really what it was, but honestly, I want to say, generally speaking, I lived in Houston. I've always been around different cultures, and I
Mhm.
find it very strange when people, no matter what race, only have friends of that race, because I think we are more like my friends and we are unalike, which is a quote from Maya Angelou. And I
Mhm.
think the more understanding that we have in this world, and I think I noticed that early on, but did not have the words to articulate that when I was younger.
Mhm. Mhm.
But once I actually went to other countries and like while during my MBA, and I was like, oh wow, we are really the same. It doesn't matter if this person, it doesn't matter how we grew up, because I've had friends whose, parents have lived through war. And like now as an adult, I have friends who have lived through wars. And it's so important to me to make sure that I have as much understanding as possible. And then during 9/11, I had like living in Houston, we're one of the most diverse cities in America, if not the, and I went to the same type of college, and we had 151 countries. And I was just like, there's nothing different between them. And then for during 9/11, for people to scream at them, talking about like they're terrorists, and people not caring that there's a difference between somebody from Colombia and somebody from Mexico, and not knowing really what a hijab is. Like, I feel like this is 2022. Like, there should be no reason why people act like that. And so it's very important to me, and it's really irritating if you can't tell. But I do my best to learn people and to be respectful, and just hold space, because I know that sometimes, especially living in Texas, when I was in Texas, there aren't a lot of spaces. So
Mhm. Oh my gosh, you said that so well. And thank you. I mean, that wasn't, where we're going with our chat today, but I just love what you shared because I think that's a beautiful message just for, the human race
well,
to
thank you for
hear.
asking. I know it wasn't planned, but yeah, thank you for asking that. I didn't think about it, but yeah, that's really what excites me.
Wow, I love that. When did you finish your MBA?
In 2014. So I
Okay.
lived in Italy for almost 2 years. I did a portion of it. I got accepted into the specialty program in New York. So I lived there for a little bit off Wall Street, which was really cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, I did that in 2014.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
No
So,
problem.
yeah, absolutely. Okay. And just a reminder for those of you listening to the podcast, remember if you want to see us, you can do so on my YouTube channel, which is the visual version of this podcast, Conversations with Christal. So, one of the reasons why I was so happy that Ashleigh accepted my invitation to be on the show is because she loves talking about relationships. Like, that's our jam. So we're actually going to start off with Ashleigh talking a little bit about, and the way that she talks about it, I love the way that she describes it because it's so clear and it makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that it will to you listeners as well. And that's the conversation of like alpha male and alpha female energy. So just share a little bit about like what that means. And then let's just dive in.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's this, I think there's this visual I think people get when they think of an alpha female and an alpha male. When we
Mhm.
think of an alpha female, I think we think of people like the Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
And we think of an alpha male as someone who's extremely cocky, muscles, kind of toxic masculinity, I think is what we think of when we think of alpha female and alpha male. Um, but for me, I've always said that alpha female women in their relationships want to be soft. We don't want to be bossy. We don't want to wear the pants in our relationships. We make decisions every day, all day in our businesses and our careers with children, but in our relationships, we want to be soft. And to me, what an alpha male is someone who is emotionally evolved. Not someone who's gonna like beat someone up, which is nice. I mean, if you like that, obviously that kind of rolls into preferences and stuff like that. But we do also want to feel like we're protected in all forms.
Yes.
But a man that isn't who knows the difference between, like, who understands what he has to lose, right? And he's gonna make decisions and think prior to taking action. So for me, an alpha male is someone that can hold my vulnerability and can hold me in a space that's not necessarily physical. I mean, obviously that too, but who can hold me and hold my emotions and lift me up. And so that's kind of what alpha female, alpha male relationship looks like to me. Not necessarily one of them's more bossy over the other,
Yes.
just people who are emotionally evolved.
Yes. And when you were describing that, I envision just like a flow, right? There is a flow to, a rhythm almost between the two when they're in sync. And just having like being emotionally involved, being emotionally intelligent, I think about all the ways how that benefits like the relationship. For example, I imagine that when you have, for example, like an alpha male who is emotionally evolved, you can come to him with things like you say, you can come and be vulnerable, and he can hold that space for you without him falling apart, him making it about himself, right? And then
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, either you're like trying to defend yourself and saying like, no, like this isn't about you, like I'm just trying to
Right.
share, or so I just think that's such a beautiful description and something to a certain level that I just think that we all want in our relationships. And it's interesting because I actually never really thought of myself as an alpha female, because even though I'm very like direct and clear for the most part about like what I want in my relationship, or what I'll share with my husband, I'm also soft, right? I have moments where I'm like really soft, but I so like connect with the way that you described it. And I think that I am very much alpha female. What does that look like in your relationship?
I think an alpha female is someone who, okay, oh my goodness, like I'm so happy that I'm not in the dating world. I feel for those who are, and it's not even a joke, because, and on both sides, because I saw this tweet, And it was a girl who said, I went on a date and the guy did not compliment me. And so I'm not going to go out with him again because I shouldn't have to ask someone to compliment me. And I was like, okay, I understand. I do understand. However, my thought is, why would you not tell someone that there's something that you need? Because my love language is not words of affirmation. You would never have to tell me you love me. You wouldn't have to tell me that I'm, cute. I mean, maybe if I'm feeling like insecure in a moment or something, maybe, but like, which is not often, right? But it's just like, you don't have to tell me that you miss me, because my love language is acts of service, and I forgot the other one. I'll think of it before we get there, but it's just like, you can show me that you love me, and you would never have to tell me that you love me or miss me again if you're doing it right.
Yes.
Some people need words of affirmation, and she sounds like someone who does, right? And just because he didn't tell you that doesn't mean that you are, that he doesn't think that, but maybe he's been in other relationships where his girl told him that not to tell him, or not to tell them that, you know what I mean? And to me, that's beta activity. That's what I would call beta female activity, beta male activity. Like, tell me what it is that you want. And to me, an alpha woman knows what she wants. If she can't get it at the moment, she figures out a plan on how to get it. And I feel like an alpha male is the same way. He's going to do what he needs to do to achieve the things that he wants to achieve. He's not going to sit around and wait. He's not going to blame anyone else. He's going to work with his spouse or his significant other to get things done. And like, for me, I'm always going to make sure, because I remember having a conversation, he said something about, it's my fault. And I was like, this conversation is not about placing blame. This conversation is about finding a solution.
Yeah.
Because I don't get anything out of you feeling like that it's your fault, and I don't get anything out of saying it's your fault. The blame is irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that this, doesn't happen again. So there's no miscommunication, et cetera, et cetera. But it would be beta on both of our sides to be passive aggressive, for me to go talk about him poorly to my mom or to my friends, or to say something embarrassing in front of one of his friends. Like, who does that? What are we doing here? Why are we in a relationship if that's the way that we're acting towards each other? Or me not just telling him what my problem is. Like, sometimes you need a moment to be able to tell him. Or I've just learned to pout through telling what I'm feeling sometimes, instead of just being, and like, if I want to get it out, but I'm not fully ready, I'll kind of just like pout about it or something, but at least I'll get it out. And then it kind of also softens the conversation, but that's just me. But
I love that so much. And you were cracking me up with the description of the beta female or the beta male. That makes so much sense. And it's interesting because you and I are very similar in what you described with. So for example, the love languages are acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, and then physical touch. And so I really relate to you on acts of service as being my love language. Like, never even have to tell me that you love me, because I'm going to see it in what you're doing. Yeah, I totally relate to that. And, it kind of makes me think about a conversation with another relationship coach who I had on the podcast. And we were talking about criticism and how that impacts relationships. And she was sharing that, her name is Dr. Jessica Higgins, and she was sharing that sometimes we lead with criticism when we really want, what we really want is like connection in that moment, right? Or kind of like to what you were just saying, we haven't like flexed or worked that muscle about how to like communicate to our spouse,
exactly,
our partner, right? So in the past, maybe for whatever reason, we developed like this defense mechanism of criticizing. And we use it as a default instead of like evolving and realizing that like maybe you don't need to lead with that anymore, especially if it's not giving you what you need.
And criticizing and leaving also, like,
Yes.
why not stay? Because I think people in these relationships, and like they don't want to, it's like they want, okay, yes, people should be whole. Like I should not complete you, right?
Yes.
But I mean, there is an aspect of that when you know, join together. However, people are missing the fact that you do grow together. I mean, hello, like, like, do you want somebody who's so complete that they are stuck in their ways and they're not going to ever try to learn you, and you guys are just two separate entities kind of living in the household, you know, like who wants that? And growing together is so important, because not only were you talking about ebbing and flowing before, but you ebb and flow through life, like through your decades, you know what I mean? Through like different triumphs and tribulations, right? So you grow, and if it's important to you, you're going to make sure that you grow together, even though you are growing individually.
I love that so much because, you know, like the idea of like someone completing you, that type of thing, like, yeah, that's not what we're talking about here, but there is, like, for example, in that short little ebook that I wrote on, like, is your love language really the secret to love that lasts, right? And so I kind of did a play on the original book where I said, okay, if this is your love language and you're not quite getting this from your partner, these are some ways that you can also take care of yourself, right? So with that kind of, and that's what we're talking about here of, it's great to have like your emotional well-being not be at the mercy of your partner. However, you know, growing and just spending time and in relation and creating, right? Whether that's like creating a family or just creating goals together or what have you, that does involve like the ebb and the flow, right? Not just like these two ships, like just sailing, you know, doing their own thing.
Absolutely. When we kind of figured out, when I found out about love languages, I was like, oh my goodness. And our relationship completely shifted after that. My top two actually were equal. They are acts of service and gifts. And I think even as you grow together, I think sometimes that can ebb and flow a little bit depending on what's going on, because we've been long distance because he works in different places. Now we're together, which is wonderful. So I needed quality time, and I needed him to say things to me because he couldn't acts of service anything, right?
Yes.
He wasn't near me to put gas in my tank or to, you know, like back camera my, you know, my shoulder or whatever.
Right.
So we needed to figure out, you know, the different things, but he is physical touch and words of affirmation. And so we are complete opposites in literally everything. I like my sandwiches like this. He likes his like this. I'm like, oh my, I look at him every time he makes a sandwich. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
There are jets flying over because I'm in Louisville. So tomorrow there is for the Kentucky Derby. It starts like 2 weeks earlier.
Oh, I see.
Like some freedom over, I don't know, something like that. But anyway, but yeah, like we're opposites in all ways. And it made so much sense because I was acts of servicing the heck out of him, right?
Yes.
And he was telling me he missed me, and I was like, okay, because like, no, that might have been a little abrasive and a little bit like, Ashleigh, like, dang, like just telling me miss him too. And I'm like, but we just saw each other. Can you give me a minute to miss you or whatever? But it's just, it was so freeing and so helpful when we figured out that I was loving him wrong and he was loving me wrong. And it was going like this and we were missing it. And finally, when we figured that out, it was like, oh, and things just got so much better. And then just also realizing that, like I said, depending on the situation, sometimes you will need to figure out ways to spend more quality time together, less gifts, maybe more words of affirmation, more quality time, less acts of service. So I think it just depends.
Oh my gosh, no, that's so good. And was there like, what was the catalyst for you guys having that conversation? Was it one of you reading the book, or like, did you guys have like kind of a big fight? And like what was the catalyst for you guys being like, oh my gosh, like, this is how I would love for you to, like love me, knowing that it's a request and that there's a 50-50 chance that that request, right, may or may not be yes. What was the catalyst?
I want to say that we were arguing a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what we were arguing a lot
Yeah.
about, but I just remember we seemed to be arguing a lot. And somehow somebody told me about the book. I did not read it. I just took the quiz because I was
Okay.
like, let me get to the good stuff. So
Right.
I took it and I found out mine and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I asked him to take it and he did.
Mhm.
And honestly, him taking it, I did not realize how, and I know like you should not compare anybody to anything,
Mhm.
but I didn't realize at the moment how important it was that he took it and the
Mhm.
reason why he took it. Because
Mhm.
I have a friend who we were talking about love languages, and I was like, girl, send him a thing, ask him, tell him to take the quiz. And she's like, well, I don't have a relationship where I can tell him to do anything. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not really like forcing him to do it. It's just like, hey, can you
Right.
take the quiz? And she was like, no, that's not really him. And um, can you hear that?
A little bit, but not too
Oh,
bad.
okay. So
Yes.
it's just
Okay.
on my side. I'm very okay. So it's not that bad. Okay, sorry everyone. Anyway,
It's
um,
okay.
so she said, yeah, that he's not really gonna do it, and I felt bad for her, and so I actually well no, I didn't feel bad for her in that moment. I thought that's very strange, and
Mhm.
then I asked Adrian, I was like, hey, why did you take the love languages quiz? And he was like, because you asked me to. And I was like, yeah, but why did you take it? And he was like, because it
Mhm.
mattered to you. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
You're my
You're so
person.
good. I love you so much. Jeez. And then I thought about it and I was like, how sad to be with someone who won't do small things
Yeah.
that matter to you.
Mhm.
And that made me feel bad for her because I was like, everyone deserves someone who is going to do the things that matter. And I guess also it was an act of service for him
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
take
that's
it.
true. Yeah.
But then me finding out, like, it just really helped. And so, I mean, that
Yeah.
sort of was kind of, you know, off topic, but
No, it
just
wasn't.
it really mattered. And I just found that to be so important, and not realizing that when you write your list of standards and things that you want them
Mhm.
to have, saying that they care about the things that matter to you,
Mhm.
putting that on, like, who would think that you would
Yes.
need to put something, because it seems like a given, right?
Right.
But
Right.
looking at some other relationships and things that some people go through, you realize it's not.
Yes. No, I'm so happy you shared that because sometimes, like you were saying, I think many times when we are thinking about the relationships that we're in, or whether it's marriage or a committed relationship, it's almost like nobody told us some things, right? Like nobody told us that it would look a certain way, right? For certain people. And so it's almost
Right.
like we go into it with these really kind of unconscious sometimes expectations, right? About just like at a
Always, not even
minimum.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Like, you're
that's
so
true.
right. Like, yes,
That's true.
seriously.
Yeah, it's like at a minimum, my relationship should at least look like this. And then when it doesn't, sometimes it's almost like many of us, and I think I've even seen if I look back over like my marriage and even relationships prior, would spend the time like fretting about like, why does it look like this? Instead of like almost trying to, from a place of like compassion and curiosity, figure out, okay, if this is like my reality in the moment, why do I feel like this about it, right? Why do I think my partner is having this response, or have I had that conversation with him, that type of thing. So like unspoken expectations, I think is just a way for us to set each other up for failure, like every time. And so I
I
really,
agree.
yeah, I really love for sharing there. And that was beautiful. And it was an act of service of why he took the quiz for you. But it was a beautiful reason because it mattered to you.
Yeah, it did. And it
Mhm.
was yeah, it was really beautiful, I think, for me to realize that and understand it. I'm very interested in people and human interaction and
Mhm.
um why people react, I guess, in certain ways. And
Mhm.
I also thought about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mhm.
and it definitely helped me in relationships with friends also, because when you're younger, you don't know these things, right? You don't
Yeah.
have the words to articulate this stuff, and to realize that I grew up in a great household. My mom was like VP level. I grew up in a
Mhm.
multi six figure home,
Mm.
not home, like household. So
Yes.
I didn't struggle what was not part of my vocabulary, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't were we going to eat, it was just what were we going to eat and of
Mhm.
how much, right?
Mhm.
And that's that was not the same case with Adrian. And not saying that he was,
Right.
didn't know what he was going to eat, but just the different ways that we grew up.
Yes.
And even with friendships, like if I'm over here up at self actualization and my
Mhm.
friend doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, they
Yes.
can't be a
Yes.
great friend to me. And
Yes.
I'm over here stressing and being upset because, oh, they, left me hanging or whatever. And
Right.
it could be because they were self-conscious about something or didn't have something and didn't want to tell me. And
Yes.
it can be the same thing in relationships. And it's like, because especially women, but especially Black women are exceeding, what Black men are making.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's troubling when you hear Black men say, well, I want to be financially stable, when we know that our grandparents were not the same way. It was
Right.
like, you grow together, you get
Yeah.
all of this stuff together, you do all of these things together, and we're like, no, I want my own, and then we can come together. And I think that's kind of what has messed at least the millennial and younger generation up,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we're expecting, and just, I mean, I think this is like rhetoric from just the past, and then obviously slavery, all the things that happened after
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, there are reasons why, and I totally understand that. But it's
Yes.
just like, if someone is at a completely different level than you, if you are doing inner work, like making sure that your traumas are checked and that your triggers are no one else's problem, but
Yes.
you're with a guy who, y'all are at a restaurant and some dude looks at his girl and he gets up and like messes up the whole table, gets in a fight,
Right.
like that to me is beta male activity.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's protecting his wife or his woman. That was ego. That
That
had
was
nothing to do
all
with her,
ego. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, there are, that might or might not be Maslow. I mean, it kind of is Maslow's hierarchy, but it's just like, where are you mentally,
Yeah.
and how can you, I don't know what my point was there, but
No, that was so good. And look, I know it's a hot topic, and my view on this may be very different from other people's view. But when you were just describing that situation, and like that's beta male like activity, Will Smith all the way, right? With that Chris Rock situation, like I totally saw that as like a beta male energy type situation, like big ego, let me go. And look, I know there's probably some history behind that. It wasn't just like about that moment, probably between him and Chris Rock. But yeah, no, I love that you use, and it's kind of funny too, like this description of like the beta and the alpha,
yeah.
the yeah, because it
I
makes all the sense.
I think, and just obviously, I know this is a hot topic, but
Yes.
for me, I felt like that situation when Will was like, he was having a conversation with God and saw all the things that God was showing him and he was overwhelmed by it. I
Mhm.
felt like that's what that slap was. I felt like it had so much more to it. And I felt like it had nothing to do with Chris, nothing to do with
Mhm.
what Chris said. Cause I was like, I get it. I understand that people go through things, and especially mentally when it comes to especially Black women with their hair. Because
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
oh my goodness. But it just did not seem that bad to take it there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I felt
Sure.
obviously I felt like he was wrong and all that stuff, but I just felt like it was way more spiritual than that. Like I feel like there was just so much on him that he felt he needed to release it somehow, and it was in the wrong way.
And that was the moment he chose.
Yes. Unfreaking fortunately, my goodness, Lord.
No, but this is like just a good conversation to have, because I think, I really want listeners to be encouraged to have these conversations with their partners, and don't be afraid, like don't try to think about how to say it in the right way or anything. Just, I think it's okay to have those moments to be vulnerable and just share with your partner, and kind of let them know what's coming up for you, how you would like to be loved, and that type of thing. And allow them to have the chance to show up.
Yeah, I think what's important is to even like have the conversation, like the most basic conversation, and saying, look, I don't know how, I'm trying to say this as best as possible. It might come off poorly. One day I might be able to say this eloquently, but I just need you to be here and listen and not take offense until we can figure out what I'm really trying to say, or something like that. And then have them agree, and have them agree not to interrupt, or, whatever it is, and then say what it is that you need to say. Because obviously we don't get it right every single time, right? Regardless of if you are, self-actualized and everything like that. Sometimes we just don't get it right. And you never know. When like I had to learn that when Adrian's like, I need a minute, I need to give him that freaking minute.
Yeah.
Even though I'm so like, no, but I want to talk about it right now. Because we grew up differently. In my household, my mom's a psychology major. She wanted, and she, did child psychology and everything like that. And she taught me how to speak. My feelings mattered. His household was not the same, so I already knew how to have conversations and figure out, is this the root, that was not him. So I had to learn so much patience. It's not even funny. It was excruciating. It was absolutely excruciating, but it's honestly, our relationship is one of the things that I am most proud of. And I'm so happy. I'm so excited that I chose someone who had the, the basic things, but also not realizing in the moment just even how kind he was and everything like that, and how much he really did care for me, and how those things really mattered. And I'm just really proud of that, and really proud of us just to, just to grow and, be there for each other and everything like that through all of the things that we've, seen, done, and all this stuff.
Oh my gosh. I think that's just like a beautiful note to end on. And I'm glad that you gave yourself credit as well, right? Because you had a choice, right? So you chose well, and then you guys have done it well and are doing it well together. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Ashleigh, for being on the show. This was a wonderful conversation. Before we sign off, please share with the listeners how they can connect with you. So if they want to learn more about you and your business, or just kind of maybe follow you like in a social way, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Ashleigh Chanel, AshleighChanel. And you can learn about me. Just it's business / personal. I only have one Instagram, and I also over on Twitter have lots of different conversations. It's _ Ashleigh Chanel, I think.
Hey.
And then mind your make your mark makeyourmarkconsulting.com. If you want to learn more about, how to connect with me on how to grow your business and, really live the lifestyle that you want to live, because I truly believe that women are the most amazing beings on this planet. Somewhere in history, they told us the opposite. And I think that women deserve to have all of the options so that we can live lives that we were destined to live, because strong women create strong children who build strong communities. And I believe that my purpose is helping women make more money so that they can have the options and, build impact across the globe.
Oh my gosh. Y'all ain't got nothing else to say. Thank you so much, Ashleigh. It has been an honor. All right, everyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time.